There are times when it seems as though you're headed in the wrong direction. It may be so, or maybe it's just that you look at things from a different perspective. This was the case with modernists. So will you follow me into Mrs. Dalloway and her world? Hello, my dear community, how are you? First of all, let me thank you for all the likes and the views and the comments you send. It means a lot to me, really. So today I would be explaining to you what I did on the first video, because the first part was dealing with a fragment of Mrs. Dalloway, but my intention was not to explain the piece to the dot in that video. So that's what I would be doing today, beginning by the author, Virginia Woolf. So are you going to join me in this adventure? Mind you, it's not easy reading for many people, not even for me. And today I mean to explain why this is. So let's talk about Virginia Woolf. She was born to a well-off family, and really she had a lot of art and literature around her. Her father was a writer too, and when she was very young she joined a group of writers. But indeed her life was not easy, because she acknowledged having her first breakdown at only 13 years of age, allegedly due to sexual abuse. But then all through her life she suffered losses, and well, she didn't have an easy life, really. So she died in 1941 because she committed suicide. She took her own life by drowning herself in a river. As regards her context, I told you before, she joined the Bloomsbury group in 1902. They were writers and artists. They were a really bohemian group. And well, they wrote a lot, and she kept on writing all through her life. But she wrote a lot of her things in between the two world wars, which has a lot to do with this idea of fragmentation and dissolution she deals with. Why? Because it is said, and we are going to explore this in a few minutes, that no writer is alien to their environment. So what happened to her probably was that she was seeing the status quo of the Eurocentric world coming apart, being dismembered. Empires were crumbling to pieces and people were dying. And well, this must necessarily have an impact in the writer's mind. So probably all of her writings have some of this, and the rebellion against this is the result of a sort of writing which differs a lot from the usual linear narrative we are used to. As for Mrs. Dalloway, she published it in 1925. Her husband and her had a publishing house, and that publishing house was the one which published most of her writings. So bear this in mind, because this was a very important in-between war period. And what you can see in Mrs. Dalloway is this challenge for the reader and this challenge for the world as to the linear narrative. We should be discussing now defamiliarization. It is a concept which was coined by formalists, but functionalists took it. I mean, the Prague school of functionalism in the 1920s. They took it and they historicized the concept. So they were paying attention to how authors shift time and change place in a way which differs from, as I said before, the usual linear narrative. Examples of this sort of writing are James Joyce and Virginia Woolf, of course. But then what about Picasso? Have you taken a look at his paintings? Have you seen how he seems to have deconstructed the pieces of a human face and put them together in the wrong position, and so this challenges the mind of the observer, or in the case of a written piece, of the reader. When you read something like this, you are challenged to stop and think. You cannot keep on reading directly and putting events together one after one as we usually do. We have to stop and think. And this is the challenge I meant to offer you. In this day and age, we are used to looking at things one after the other very quickly and not really paying much attention to anything. In this case, if you are willing to read one of Virginia Woolf's pieces, you will have to stop and pay attention to everything, because every detail counts. In Mrs. Dalloway, what she does is she lays bare the experience of the author when she is writing the story. Why? Because the narrator is omniscient to the point in which it seems as if Mrs. Dalloway were referring to herself in the third person. So the omniscient narrator creates an atmosphere of intimacy with the character, and you can directly look into Mrs. Dalloway's mind. And well, this is going to be discussed now in the fragment I offered you in the previous video. Thank you very much for watching. Please, if you like this video, consider subscribing and give me a like. It's free, totally free of charge. In the next video, we are going to finish the analysis of Mrs. Dalloway. See you!